Hello, everyone. It's Kathy at Cool Choices. We'll be starting in just a moment. It looks like folks are starting to register online. There's kind of a flurry of that, so I'll let it settle a little bit here, and then we'll get started. I've got straight up 12 o'clock, so we'll get started. Again, I'm Kathy Quince. I'm the Executive Director of Cool Choices, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar about how employee engagement can help you achieve triple bottom line results. Just as a bit of background to start us off, Cool Choices is a nonprofit. We work with businesses and whole communities to engage people in sustainable practices. Our quest is culture change around climate change. We are really on a mission to inspire people to adopt sustainable practices in a way that helps them see how those practices add up across their community, empowering them to really be part of a climate change solution. And one of the primary ways we engage folks is through our game-based online platform. So we go into organizations or communities and we implement what's essentially a game. People sign up, they form teams, and over the course of 6 weeks, they get points for the sustainable practices they adopt. And the sort of magic of our system is that it's transparent and that it facilitates conversation. So people can see what other people are doing. They can be inspired by each other. They can take on coaching roles with each other. And all of that leads to conversation, to people being surprised by what other people are doing around them, people being inspired by what other people are doing around them, that kind of increased momentum that can lead for our partners to culture change, to people recognizing that I'm part of a community where sustainability is a shared value. And if I believe it's a shared value in my community, it's much easier for me to adopt new practices. There's a bigger motivation to do that. So it creates that momentum. So we want to kind of talk about how that momentum can affect all aspects of a triple bottom line. I want to start, though, by acknowledging that we're kind of in this magical moment with sustainability at this point. This is really recent data about S&P 500 companies. And, you know, every year this creeps up another 2 to 3% that I'm expecting pretty soon they won't have to do a graph anymore. They'll just list the 10 companies who are the only ones who are not doing sustainability reporting. So at this point, the Governance and Accountability Institute research is showing that 85% of S&P 500 companies are reporting on corporate sustainability at some level. And that means they're probably in one way or another talking about a triple bottom line. They're talking about how their efforts affect people, planet, and profitability. So how it's good for the enterprise, how it's good for the people in and around the enterprise, and how it's good for the broader environment. And so today I want to kind of unpack, or at least begin to unpack, how employee engagement delivers a benefit in each of those spheres. And, you know, we tend to, I think, when we talk about employee engagement, maybe focus on some of the benefits versus others. So today I want to give you kind of a higher level across all of those sectors, set of benefits from employee engagement, and then we might in future webinars dig into some of those a little bit more deeply. I want to start though by giving you a sense of what I mean when I talk about employee engagement. And I really feel that one of our past partners, Morgan Wiswall, captured this so well when he said, you know, what they got was an entire employee population moving in the same direction. They got rank and file staff from accounting to manufacturing, understanding why they were on a quest to reduce resource use and how they personally played a role in that. That's culture change. This is no longer a strategy that we're pursuing as kind of the flavor of the week. Instead, this is really about how this is embedded in our value system in a really fundamental way. And so that's the kind of engagement I want you to picture today when we're talking about how this affects the people, planet, profit spheres. That very real fundamental engagement, not superficial, we had a brown bag once kind of thing, but there's a dialogue and employees feel like they're part of this effort here to reduce our impact on the environment and be more socially equitable. So in light of that definition, then let's talk about the pieces. Let's start with people. So this might seem completely obvious, but I think this is actually one that we don't reflect back that much. You know, employee engagement is obviously about people, and we talk a lot about how engaging employees benefits the enterprise, but in reality, it also benefits those people who are being engaged. 88, this is research from Cone Communications, that 88% of millennials want opportunities to help their organizations be more socially and environmentally sustainable. That's, you know, almost 9 in 10. And across the entire population, they estimate that it's 74%. So there's this hunger across your employee base to be part of a solution. You know, we talk sometimes about purpose-driven work. It's a very basic human desire to need to feel good about how you're spending your time, to feel proud of what you're accomplishing, to be able to say to your kids, I built this and it's good. It delivers value to our community. And so fundamentally, there's a piece of this that really think about how when you genuinely engage your employees, you're increasing their quality of life. That's a pretty important people cohort for you. And that has ripple effects across other people cohorts that you care about, like your customers. So really good data that engaged employees correlate highly to happy customers, strong customer satisfaction, strong customer loyalty. So there's and again, you can see where that's going to cascade into the profitability arena from there. So really thinking about, oh, this engagement has a benefit for some of the people who we care about most in this, our workforce. Makes them feel good about what they're doing. It enables them to present us in a way that they're proud of who they are, and thereby delivering increased value to our customers. That's the kind of first layer, at least, of the people part of this. The planet part of it might seem a lot more obvious, you know, and here I would argue there are really a couple of parts. The first part is the reality of the challenge of your job. So I say this frequently, and it's completely genuine. You know, the work you do as a sustainability professional only gets harder over time. Every year when you accomplish amazing things, you make it harder to accomplish amazing things the next year. Okay? As you sort of pick the low-hanging fruit, you have to climb higher and higher to achieve savings in subsequent years. And certainly the experience we have with organizations is that there are a number of kind of technology-based things that are pretty simple to do, easily cost-effective. Those should be cranked out first. There comes a point, though, where you really have to think about, okay, how are we going to engage people? Because to get that next unit of savings, we need everybody chipping in. And there are lots of examples of how this is true. My favorite comes from the electricity realm. So this is data from the Energy Information Agency, and this is about total electric usage of all commercial buildings in the U.S. So as you go from 1995 to 2035, there are more commercial buildings in the queue. And you see that like HVAC and lighting here are pretty flat. Even though there are more buildings, the amount of energy we're using in aggregate to light those buildings is flat. That's all about LED technology making lighting so much more efficient. Look over here though, Plugloads. Plugload in buildings really beginning in 2000 has exploded. We have way more Plugload than we had historically, and certainly as a portion of that building, it keeps going up. There's recent data from Minnesota that when you build a high-performance building, so when you build a building with very efficient heating and cooling systems, with efficient lighting, with a smart energy-efficient shell, 55% of the energy usage in that building, the remaining energy usage, is Plugload. And, partly this is about what we've got in our cubicles. Most of us now have 2 reasonably large monitors. We might have a mini fridge or a coffee pot or a space heater. Again, there's some estimates out of Minnesota that the typical cubicle is using about as much electricity as a residential refrigerator. That's amazing. And as you get to the point where you want to reduce that energy usage, that's not about your facilities team. That's about everybody in your organization pitching in. That's about employee engagement. So to reduce resource use there, you've really got to make a case for everyone to be part of the solution, involved, and contributing to the answer. As you engage people, there are a couple of side benefits here that are really important. And the biggest one is the fresh ideas. Okay, when you start that dialogue with people, when that's a genuine dialogue, so it's not you just hanging posters in the hallway or yelling at people in email that they're leaving things on. But when you're creating a space where you're inviting them to help you be part of the solution that reduces resource waste, you're going to get ideas. Particularly if you can present that in a way that acknowledges that people have insights and expertise in the organization that you can never replicate. You can't hang out enough time in the warehouse or in the cafeteria or in other places to identify all the ways that waste could be reduced in those operations. But if you invite people into a genuine conversation, they're going to share those things with you. A guy in the warehouse is going to point out that we leave these doors open in the freezing cold. Or these particular vehicles idle a ton while they're here. Someone else in your cafeteria staff may point out a huge source of food waste. Operational efficiencies in manufacturing, in office operations. Can we get rid of a bunch of printers? That'll not only reduce our electric usage, but will reduce toner costs and maintenance on all those different units. All kinds of things that come from that dialogue with everyone. As you have that dialogue, I always have to point out, one of the things that is going to happen is some of the ideas that come forward are going to seem a little annoying to you. And I say that with love, okay? Because there's a ton of things on your plate. So my kind of best example of this is a food processing facility that's focused on reducing their water usage. And their green team is thinking in you know, millions of gallons of water that they're reducing. And employees are talking about a leaky faucet in the women's room. And the scale of that faucet is completely immaterial to what's happening. What's important for you to understand when you're dealing with that employee dialogue is that leaky faucet is the evidence employees see 2 or 3 times a day that the organization isn't really serious about reducing water waste. And so sometimes you need to address those things that seem like just distractions because you want to build a really consistent story for people. As you bring people into this and say, I want you to help me figure out how we become better at what we do, you have to eliminate the things that are proving that that commitment isn't real. Even at points if they don't seem like the most important thing to eliminate. Those are, you know, it's like the thumb you hit with the hammer. It gets in the way of everything now. Better to address it. So that's sort of that first level of things that you can think about with the planet here. And then, as probably you're already thinking, all of this ties back to profitability. You know, certainly everything you do to reduce resource waste means you're burning less money. And I do encourage you to use really vivid imagery around this. Everybody should feel a little pain that as an organization we're doing things that's burning money. Money we could reinvest in our operations, money we could use to increase salaries, money we could use to increase our production. But we're just burning it to burn it. And so that's, you know, the first and most obvious thing here. When you get employees engaged and they're identifying ways to reduce waste, very often those are simple things that have little to no cost and big impact. So that's the first way that affects profitability. The second way is really tied to that people piece. And you know, so Gallup does a meta-analysis where they look at employee engagement across hundreds of thousands of organizations, millions of people around the world, and then they compare the companies that have high levels of engagement to the companies that have low levels of engagement. And one of the correlations they see is around profitability. So highly engaged companies are 21% more profitable than companies with low levels of engagement. And that's been true across, I think they've done 12 of these meta-analyses now, you know, so there's quite a bit of data there going, okay, there's something there about employee engagement and profitability. We talked about how that's tied to resources. The other thing it's tied to very clearly is turnover issues. So when employees are engaged, when they're proud of what they're doing, when they believe in what the company is doing, when they see how they're making a contribution to something bigger than themselves, they stay. When they're disengaged, when they feel like no one cares about what they're doing, maybe what they're doing seems dumb, ineffective, underappreciated, they don't stay. And turnover is really expensive for organizations. More, we're in an increasingly tight labor market. So there's sort of the basic cost of turnover, but increasingly we're in a place where there aren't enough talented people to go around. And so if you're not engaging employees and you're churning through talent, it's very plausible you're going to have positions you can't fill. How do you compete with the folks down the road who are engaging their employees? And I think, you know, this is going to become kind of more and more critical as we move forward. We're not at the end of this labor shortage yet. we're really just in the beginning of the baby boomers moving out of the market. This is going to be more and more challenging for organizations. Really, as a sustainability professional, you should expect that more and more HR and suite leadership more broadly are going to be asking you how can our sustainability efforts help us attract and retain talent. And so you having a strong engagement strategy is really critical to making that happen. Again, just kind of pulling through all of that. So you've got really this way that engagement affects the employees and the customers, and by extension your shareholders and other stakeholders. Employee engagement helps you identify and maximize opportunities to save and reduce waste. And both of those things contribute to profitability. So engaging employees is a way to get at that triple bottom line. And I hope you really think about how you can engage employees in your own efforts. I'm going to close there with an opportunity to do some Q&A. So you've got the little box for the GoToWebinar thing. You can hit the orange arrow to open it, and there'll be a box where you can type in a question if you've got a question. And it looks like someone asked one here earlier. I'm on the road today, so my skills here are a little bit slower than usual. So asking about our green team is pretty skeptical about employee engagement. There's a strong preference to do real, in quotes, projects versus soft stuff like engaging employees. How do I make the argument here? I think one way, it's a great question, and it's not that atypical that it feels much more defensible to invest in an upgrade of the lighting system or a new piece of equipment somewhere else in the organization than to say, well, we're going to engage people and get them all to reduce their idling across the organization or something. I think one way to make the case is to tell stories about other organizations who do this. I think maybe some of the most compelling stories in this realm come from like the Better Plants Challenge. The DOE initiative with large manufacturers has some great examples of how employee engagement can uncover really significant savings. I think about a story that Kimberly Clark person shared with me about an energy treasure hunt they did where staff, even though the facility had lots of technical energy audits over the years, they did a treasure hunt where they engaged employees and really encouraged them to think about the operation. And the employees identified a ventilation system that had always been left on all weekend and said, you know, why don't we turn that off Friday when the facility isn't open over the weekend? When that last crew leaves on Friday night, what if they turn that ventilation system off? And indeed, turning that system off saved them more than $100,000 a year. That's real money. And that's the kind of thing that you know you need all hands on deck to identify. If you've got 2,000 employees all sitting in cubicles using the equivalent of a residential refrigerator, and you can reduce that energy consumption 10% across those cubicles, that's huge. You're talking megawatt hours there. That requires engagement. So maybe my answer is twofold. Tell some stories, but also do some math tied to some of the examples, but that might be a way to get some of that to happen. I am not seeing other questions, and since my inclination is to always keep these short, and let you get back to all of the important work you do. I think we'll close it there. You have my email if you have questions later. Again, thank you for everything you're doing out there to help businesses and communities be more sustainable. If there's something we can do to help you, please let me know. And have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much. Bye.